I'm Claire Parker.
And I'm Ashley Hamilton. And this is Celebrity Memoir Book Club, the podcast where we read the books and tell you the truth of what's in them, because let me tell you what, motherfuckers are lying to you. All these authors, liars.
I really was taken aback by your use of the M word.
Really?
I guess it's just so early in the morning and I was like, you know what I mean? I take the time you take to explain what this podcast is about, and I take a little nap in my head and whoa, did that wake me up.
Like a shot of espresso.
That's an S-tiered curse word, I think.
Really?
First thing, yeah. I've been told that's bad for YouTube, but whatever. We're not here for the money.
Oh, yeah. No, we do it for the love of the game exclusively.
And did you explain to them what this podcast is about?
Yeah, where we read the book and tell you the truth of what's in it, because the motherfuckers are lying.
Where are you getting that M word from? It's not in the book.
I heard it in a TV show.
What TV show are you watching? The Sopranos? You're watching a bunch of gangsters talk like that with their dirty mouths? Last I heard, you were watching the Knicks. They don't curse like that on ESPN.
I'm off the Knicks, man. I've turned on those guys.
Why?
Because they stole my phone.
Well, do you want to get into what happened to you last night?
Oh my God, you guys.
The trauma's bubbling and bursting out of you. I feel like I'm watching The Real Housewives of New York over here. New edition, the victimhood.
I'd like to let you guys know how brave I am. I'm very brave. I'm here phoneless because I was robbed, in fact, last night watching a Knicks game.
Are you sure you want to do New York City dirty like that?
Yeah, I'm a Pacers fan now. Because can I tell you something? The minute I got robbed.
But do you even want to add on to the rumors that New York City is this dangerous mugging town?
No, it wasn't a dangerous mugging. It was a casual Donald Trump's America rob, okay? That's not New York City's fault. That's Donald Trump's fault.
Okay. Can you explain?
However, well, I just feel that people are less considerate of each other now that it's Donald Trump's America.
Okay.
But, okay, and I'm not mad because it was a Knicks bar and obviously a Knicks fan that robbed me. I'm mad because the minute, I don't know if you watched the game last night, they were losing. I think they were down by 20 at one point. They ended up coming back in the fourth quarter and winning. The minute I noticed my phone was missing is when the comeback started. So it wasn't the people in the bar. I'm not mad at the people in the bar for stealing my phone. I'm mad at the Knicks for using the magic of my sacrifice to take the game. I don't feel that that was fair. I don't know what I did to have to be the sacrifice.
What if it's true, though? If you were told straight up, the reason the Knicks won last night is because somebody needed a black market pill that you have to buy by doing dealings with a stolen phone, would you take that hit for New York City?
No, because I'm not even a Knicks fan. I was excited to be a part of the excitement.
Mm-hmm.
I would do that for the Bears. I would do it for the Bulls. I would do it for my Chicago teams, not the White Sox, obviously. But I wouldn't take that hit for the Knicks.
It's not about the Knicks. It's about the people of New York City who have so little. They have nothing.
Timothée Chalamet will never Bob Dylan again if the Knicks don't win.
Thank God for that.
But anyway, so that's why Ashley, I'm rejecting the Knicks now, because I don't think it's fair that they made me the sacrifice.
I have one regret.
What?
And it's that I wasn't there to save it. You're owed an unstolen phone. If you're the person who stole her phone, you have to give it back in honor of me, because if you guys are new listeners, you may not know that my phone was stolen 2 summers ago, maybe at this point.
Oh my God, we've been telling that story.
It was last summer. And Ashley tracked it down for half an hour and chased the guy down and got it back.
I will say, though, the reason that I knew that this was
done and dusted
is because it was turned off immediately. And yours, I feel he found it because you dropped it on the ground. It was an opportunistic taking.
I agree.
It wasn't an active thieving. And I do feel that mine was an active thieving, which I think is just unkind.
I agree. Don't steal from people, steal from corporations.
Yeah. Anyway, but it is what it is. I accepted it. I moved on. I'm bravely here phoneless. I'll go get one someday.
I would prefer, if you're looking for ideas, for you to get an older phone so that we could go back to sharing a charger.
Oh, that's a nice idea. I do think eventually, though, you'll upgrade your phone.
No.
Okay.
Because all of my wedding pictures are on my current phone and I don't believe in the cloud, so.
That's tough. I believe in the cloud because let me tell you what, if my shit was on the cloud, I wouldn't have the most recent 1,000 photos of Bug Ann. And that would be bad. Claire, how was your weekend?
It was great. I went to a wedding. I finished the book Doppelganger, which I highly recommend. It was really great. I really loved it. I finished that while we were in Ireland.
We talked about it on the Patreon if anyone's interested.
So this week I've been sick, if you can believe it. I've had a little bit of a chest cold.
I actually can't believe it.
Well, I, like you, can get sick.
As someone who's never been sick, this is shocking to me.
Because of that, I've had to be talking very quietly because it hurts to talk at my normal voice, which is a scream. And I want to say my review of speaking quietly, of course it feels powerful. Of course it feels sexy. Of course it feels incredibly dainty and feminine to be like, oh, me, I'm but a wisp of wind. Yeah, lean in, come close. Let me cough my germs all over you so that you can hear my important things to say. But I will stand by that it's actually much more polite to be a loudspeaker because then everyone can hear you and everyone can get involved. I don't know if you've ever talked to somebody that you can't hear, but you're just like, you must try. You must try and use your outdoor voice because I'm in this conversation just nodding like a dummy.
Yeah. I mean, you can only say, I'm sorry, what'd you say so many times before you just commit to not hearing a goddamn word of it?
I know these people have a chest voice. I know that
you can do it. You've chosen not to.
My mom's a real quiet talker. And when you point out, when you go, oh, I can't hear you, she does this thing where she gets quieter. It's so insane because I'm like, I've heard you yell. I was a teenager.
Should we get into this week's book?
You guys, this is a throwback. Her name is Kelly Oxford. You may know her if you were on Twitter.
It was so interesting because I was talking about her this weekend at a barbecue. And I was trying to explain her to someone who didn't know who she was. And I was talking about like 2014 culture. And then this book actually did come out exactly in 2014. So it's crazy that I
think it came out in 2013.
Oh.
But it's still like, I do think you read it and you just go, what the fuck am I even looking at here? It's Obama era. Zooey Deschanel is the quirkiest, sexiest girl. Katy Perry is ironically kissing girls.
Exactly. And so we were talking about it and they were talking about this phenomenon where when things are good overall, like all of this slop media comes out where they're just like, shit, my dad says that's a TV show and a book and a t-shirt.
I believe that it has something to do with like a political, the hemline type thing. But I also think it was kind of the dawn of the Twitter era.
Yeah.
I remember this guy I knew had 20,000 Twitter followers, but one of them was like Lena Dunham. Like, you know what I mean? And I was like, he's famous. And people would just come into his DMs and be like, hey, I run ABC. Can you write a pilot? There was this idea if you could do 140 characters.
In a funny and irreverent way.
It felt very like BoJack Horseman-esque that anybody who had gone viral online, which back then was like, you know, Chrissy Teigen's Twitter.
Yeah.
And it was Kelly Oxford, Chrissy Teigen. It's like the era when I think the Busy Phillips Instagram stories started popping off.
And she got a New York Times profile for just like Instagram storying
and a talk show.
Yeah. Which Kelly Oxford became the head writer of.
And so Kelly Oxford's in that group. But I do think you have to remember the craziest thing you could be, the funniest, sexiest, silliest thing a woman could be is so skinny but loves bacon.
Yes. Cara Delevingne core.
And Tina Fey was the top comedian, ENNE emphasis. It's very much of that era.
And it reads so of that era. So she had almost 1 million followers on Twitter. She ended up moving out to LA because of this Twitter following and getting like writing jobs and pitching and selling some pilots. And then she became Busy Phillips's head writer. I want to just say we're going to do a deep dive on Where Is She Now on the Patreon because she ended up getting divorced.
Well, something very interesting in this book, even that she mentions to a limousine driver, is that she sold multiple pilots, multiple scripts, and nothing got made. I guess she was Busy Phillips's head writer, but on a show that like I am like, and what came from it?
Exactly. And to this day now, I think she's like mainly substacking.
And she looks exactly like Emily Ratajkowski. Which
got a lot of work done.
She had a beautiful face to start, and she really went out there and she filled it in the exact sexiest way. And to that, I commend her because a lot of people can't. Like, I mean, she really looks like Emily Ratajkowski.
Yeah. Now, when you look at her Instagram, you're like, oh, you had to do so much writing to get people to talk about how pretty you are.
I see it the other way.
You had to be so pretty to get people to talk about your writing.
I feel this entire book, it made me appreciate Lena Dunham so much. Because this whole book is about like, look what you can get away with when you're pretty. And I was like, yeah, it turns out a lot.
But I guess to me, with the Twitter thing you were saying before, of like, this is proof of how much you can accomplish when you're like a tiny, tiny woman who loves bacon. This also to me is like the funniest thing a woman can be is a mom who makes fun of her kids. Like this was very much the era of being like, it's shit my dad says. Her Twitter was like shit my kids say.
Yeah.
And she would make fun of them. And people love that.
So the book is called Everything is Perfect When You're a Liar. And it is this idea of, back to my original point, the Tina Fey of it all. What if you were 127 pounds, but you couldn't stop eating sandwiches? Wouldn't that be funny?
And whenever you talk about the sandwiches, you like mention how small you are.
Yeah.
It's so important. Because it's not funny to eat that many sandwiches if you're not so small.
There's a whole chapter in here about how she's so skinny, but she never works out. So it's kind of skinny fat. She's fat. Sure, yeah. Literally, she's skinny, but technically, she's fat.
Yeah.
But I mean, literally, she's skinny.
No. If you look at her, you think she's skinny. So don't get it fucking twisted.
5'6", 85 pounds, soaking wet. But those 85 pounds, mostly fat.
No muscle.
I have nothing against her. It's really interesting to see how dated this type of comedy is.
Okay, so I will say I have nothing against her, but I have nothing for her. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not mad at her, but I'm not going to give her more credit than is due. I don't like these essays.
I don't either. I walked away from each one going, well, what was the point? Other than to notice, like, how much better she is than everybody. I don't know. So we'll get into them. Let's just start.
Yeah.
Okay, it opens with an introduction, and I could not tell you what the fuck. I guess she has these, like, this is a tough word to say, but preternaturally. Don't, like, you know.
It's from Lena Dunham. I know it from Lena Dunham.
Yeah, but you don't know if I'm saying it right.
No. But I know what word you're trying to say. And it's a word.
She has these kids that are just, they're 2 years old and they'd snark your dick off, okay? You know what I mean? Oh, you think you're fluent in sarcasm? That was her kid's first language. He's on language 8. And he thinks you're hacking all of them. And I really was like, have you ever read something and you go, well, this didn't happen? Why are you even pretending? Because to have made something up that's not even that funny, why?
I mean, she makes up a lot of quotes in this book. A lot of precocious children in this book, whether it's herself or her own kids. Every kid is precocious if they are genetically related to Kelly Oxford, and every kid is like a stupid idiot if they're not. And yeah, so everything her kids say is, wacky.
So the first chapter is called Queen of the World or something. And when she was 6 years old, she wrote a play that adapted Star Wars to a live stage. And she wanted the kids in her neighborhood to audition for them. The kids very quickly found out that she had already booked everybody in her mind and were so outraged that the auditions were rigged that they walked out. So she goes to her school to try to do it during lunch.
They didn't walk out. They were outraged the auditions were rigged, and then she kicked them out.
That's important.
It is important.
I agree. So she kicks everybody out and then goes, my thing is ruined because I told them not to look at my notebook, and then they did, and they disrespected me, so I forced them to leave. She goes to school. The teacher is like, I'm not going to help you.
Yeah.
And so she goes out. She tries to hold these auditions for the school.
People just aren't that interested. The teacher's like, what are you doing? You're annoying.
These older kids who watch them during lunch are snickering at her. So she runs to the principal's office to call her mom to be like, everyone's making fun of me and nobody's going to help me put on my play. And she gets in trouble. Her mom says, listen, you have to stand up for yourself. Don't back down from anything. Remember in pre-K when you refused to take a nap and they said, well, if you don't nap, you can't go to pre-K. And you said, fine, I'll go home. And you quit pre-K that day. She goes, that's what makes me proud is when you stand up to people. So stand up to everyone and believe in yourself. And so she goes back and they go, you're in trouble for leaving without asking for an excuse. And she goes, and then suddenly I realized what my mom was talking about. As long as I wasn't doing something wrong, I could just be myself. Some people just weren't going to listen, weren't going to understand. And that was fine, as long as I didn't take it personally. Don't you have anything to say for yourself? My teacher asked. No, I said. Then in one giant adrenaline rush, I picked the wafer cookie half off her desk, shoved it in my mouth and said, your tadpoles are disgusting. That's what the Queen of the World would have done.
So the point of this story is that she's right all along.
Well, it's interesting, yeah, because you think the point of the story is supposed to be like, I was always this precocious, bossy kid who was always getting upset that people weren't following my directions. And you would think the lesson would be like, I was such a know-it-all. Nobody's going to work with a know-it-all, no matter how much you know.
Yeah, no one actually cares to be cast in a 6-year-old's adaptation of Star Wars.
But the lesson actually is that she is smarter than even her teachers.
Yeah.
Which is always a fun thing to hear about a 6-year-old, that they're so much smarter than even the adults. And it's like one thing for your mom to believe that about you is another thing as an adult to like write that about yourself. Be like, and that's when I realized I was the best one.
That's the thing is a lot of these stories coming from the age and perspective of when they were taking place. I was like, this is fine. But to then have no looking back upon is like, well, then why write this as an adult then?
There's like a couple layers of irony. Like they're all written with this tone as if she's going, can you believe what a piece of work I was? But ultimately the story is about how she was dead right. She's never the butt of the joke, truly.
No.
She's never learning a lesson.
You're supposed to be kind of impressed by how sassy and wily she was as but a young buck.
I guess you're supposed to relate to the protagonist and go, well, I'm better than everybody too.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, as we said, a type of personality that was quite in style at that moment. much like the girl boss era later. Like, you know what I mean? Much like the clean girl aesthetic. There's a lot of personalities that come and they go. And it's interesting, much like a high and tight boob job and a future BBL, it's interesting what can come and go in style. Like reading this now, you're just kind of like, okay, and where's the lesson? They call this book self-deprecating. I don't find it to be.
No, I actually find it to be extremely self-aggrandizing.
She may say, you may be embarrassed by this, but I'm going to say it like it is because I'm right. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah.
She's a darling. She's a demon. She's a lamb.
So this is a chapter about how she got a job when she was, I think, 12 years old. And her friends at school are like, what do you mean you're 12 years old? That's illegal. You can't work. But she got a job as a dishwasher at a German restaurant. And she feels very excited because she's always felt that having a job is so important, so grown up, so exciting. So she gets this job as a dishwasher. She goes in for her first day, and it turns out washing dishes sucks ass. It's not fun. It's actually kind of disgusting to be just picking the dirty leftovers off of people's plates that they licked and spit on. And so she goes, I don't want to be a dishwasher. I'm going to go to the other people working in this restaurant who are the children of the restaurant owners and ask them to switch jobs with me. Maybe I can be the toast making girl. Maybe I can be the hostess. So she is trying to switch jobs, and no one wants to switch jobs with her because they all know the dishes are gross.
Well, and yeah, she's like, it became clear to me that I'm the only person that works here that's not related to the family, and I have the worst job. Is that a coincidence? I'm like, it's not a coincidence. Normally you work your way up. You're 12.
She keeps on being like, they made me be their slave. I was like, they didn't make you do anything. They're paying you for a job you wanted.
Yeah, and you can leave at any time. Which she does. She's a big like, I don't believe in quitting, so I had to adapt and change. And of course, then she quits. And I'm like, well, what was your history of not quitting? You were 12. So far, you're 1 for 1 on quitting your job.
You had one job, and it seems you left early on day 2. So she tries to leave early on day 2 because all the work is done and no one's in the restaurant. And they go, well, then why don't you vacuum? And she's like, absolutely incensed that they've asked her to stay for the hours.
Well, you're missing the big thing. She also was so bored that she started dancing at one point, and she steps into the vat of pancake batter, which I imagine during a weekend brunch rush is
important.
The critical batter. So she's ruined all the
She ruined the pancakes by putting her foot in them. She doesn't want to vacuum. She wants to leave early. She hates her job. She keeps on trying to trade jobs with everyone else who works at the restaurant. And she's missing her friend's birthday party.
So she quits.
And then her mom is like, well, do you still want to go to the birthday party? And she's like, I totally relate to adults now. I just need to go home and rest.
She goes to school the next day and gives her friend a giant Bed Bath & Body Works gift basket, which she could afford with her $98 of earnings, which I was like, for one weekend is not bad.
It's not bad. But I also just don't get the point of this chapter because it is just about how she wanted a job, got a job, hated the job.
That's the problem with this whole book.
Yeah.
I was thinking about other kind of personal essay memoirs. I think about Dolly Alderton's Everything I Know About Love. And there's such a
progression.
Well, there's such a clear desire to relate, to like share in this way of going, aren't we all? Mm-hmm. And I think what the Kelly Oxford and I think what this era's type of heroine, the problem is instead of being like, haven't we all been there, sisters? It's all very much, and do you want to hear another thing about me? You know what I mean? It's very like star of the dinner party.
Yeah. Here's something I've done that's so funny.
You don't walk away going, oh my God, didn't we all have that terrible... I remember my first job, I worked at Sinatra Cafe. The guy was addicted to cocaine and I lost a press-on nail when I was trying to scoop gelato once and I just had to hope nobody noticed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we all had that shitty... like, I guess it wasn't even that shitty, to be honest, and that's why I don't talk about it. It was just it was a cafe job and I was so grateful. I was 12 years old and I was like... This is the greatest thing that could ever happen to anybody is getting to have a job.
I worked at a camp. I worked at a day camp for years as a counselor. And then you look back on it and you go, oh my God, I was putting in a lot of hours of like watching dozens of people's children for very little money. And it just is what it is.
You're so young and you're just happy to be there. Anyway, my point is you don't walk away from these stories kind of
being like that was all of our first jobs.
Ain't that the truth? It's very much like an aren't I precocious and an aren't I darling.
Yeah. And also she talks a lot about how she's so much smarter than other people for realizing that these jobs suck.
That's what I was going to say. It starts that pattern of like what jobs she can't do because she's just not cut out for it. She's a writer.
Listen, you don't understand. She can't focus on these stupid tasks because she's a writer and stupid people should be the one handling these stupid things.
Yeah.
I needed him to understand I wasn't a true quitter. I needed him to understand my point of view. He doesn't give a fuck about your point of view. He hired a 12-year-old to wash dishes. The 12-year-old doesn't want to wash dishes. He'll find another one.
It's so funny. It's such a a wrinkle in time. No, it's not a wrinkle in time. It's a moment of time.
It's like a flat piece of time.
Oprah gets referenced in like every chapter. All he had was a locally famous restaurant to inherit while I was going to rise up against adversity like Oprah. Everything comes back to, would Oprah be proud?
The answer is like such a hard no.
To think about kids today and the way that I don't think they could even imagine the power Oprah had. I wonder if we'll ever have the monoculture like that again. Who's the big? I guess they have Mr. Beast. Is Mr. Beast their Oprah?
Is Mr. Beast proud of you today?
Oh my God. Instead of being like, you get a car, it's just Mr. Beast being like, how long can you live in a car? That's his whole shtick. He's always putting people in cars and saying, stay there for $1 million.
Lick it.
We're dropping
for
cars
another $1 million.
We're dropping cars on people today. The person who gets hit with the most cars gets $1 million.
Roadrunner would, the coyote.
Yeah. Oh my God. He would crush it. I will say.
Crush it in this day and age. Can I say something embarrassing about me?
If you're going to say that you love Mr. Beast, I don't love him, but every once in a while he's stacking school buses and I'm going, that's a good question. How many can you stack?
No, I've never actually even watched any of those school bus stackings, but I think I might be entertained.
Guess the number.
6?
Okay. You have a lot of learning to do. 3 at best.
Oh. I don't really know the structural integrity of a school bus, but I will say when I'm in the grocery store checkout line and I see those Mr. Beast Beastables or whatever, his candy bar line. No, It's like a line of candy bars. They look very good to me.
I mean, he's got the greatest minds in America. Working away, getting people addicted to substances you weren't really sure were addictive. So.
I'm loyal to obviously big chocolate that I already know. But I will say when I see those new chocolates in the line, I go...
Well, you feel it's an industry that's gone left undisturbed for too long. You go, who's going to come here and innovate?
He's doing it. First of all...
The last new chocolate bar was a Take 5, and that's 15 years old.
Oh, my dad loves a Take 5.
I know, because they finally gave us something new. I can't even imagine being a dad's age having to wait that long for something new. I mean, Nerds gummy clusters, I think, are the only people...
They've really broken through.
Entrepreneuring.
Yeah.
Okay, Fuck You Forever is about how Kelly wanted to be a peer group leader, which would be somebody in her middle school who, anytime a child had a mental health problem, they could like call this kid out of class and tell them about what's going on, which to me, it's like one of the worst ideas I've ever heard of school come
I don't
up
think
with.
School should do that.
I don't think an 11-year-old should be given permanent priesthood.
Yeah. So she is applying for this peer group position because she thinks it's so important to be the person in charge of getting called out of class.
And she's also like, I'll have all the secrets. I'll be the most popular girl in school. She talks a lot about wanting to be popular. I feel like maybe she wore glasses till 6th grade and then 7th grade she got hot and like...
It was fine.
Yeah.
So she wants to be a peer group captain. She applies for it. She reflects on this story when she was really good friends briefly in like 2nd grade with this girl named Kayla, who had like a very adult upbringing. She would walk home from the bus stop by herself. Her mom was a Wiccan. She learned about this girl. They were very close for a minute.
I mean, I will say an adult upbringing is like a generous way. Like she is painting the picture of a girl who is being raised and kind of neglected by like a single mom. She goes home. The mom is like having sex with her boyfriend. The boyfriend comes out without a shirt and found a gun. And he's like showing the kids the gun and they're smoking weed. And
yeah,
it is
different than Kelly's upbringing, which is very suburban. So now that she's applying for this peer group thing, I think they're like 12 or 13. She gets the peer group job. And then a boy in school tells her that Kayla is having sex and had sex with 3 guys. Kelly freaks out because her mom is a hypochondriac and has recently found out about AIDS and keeps on like fearing AIDS. So Kelly goes, oh my God, she's going to get AIDS. Now the rumor starts spreading around school. Kelly says Kayla has AIDS.
Kelly very innocently is in the bathroom. She's like, I'm going to pee really quick and then I'm just going to run and tell Kayla, be careful. I'm worried about you, from a place of true love.
Of course, it was definitely from a place of true love. So then Kelly comes out of the bathroom. Kayla attacks her and goes, you're telling everyone in school I have AIDS? And Kelly was like, no, I'm not telling people you have...
I told one person that you could have AIDS.
Yeah.
So they get into a physical fight. A teacher breaks it up. He goes, what are you guys fighting about? And they go, nothing. And Kelly goes, I'm sorry I said something I shouldn't have, but I can't tell you what it was because it's nobody's business but Kayla. She's already learned her lesson. She's already such a good friend. She's thinking Kayla's going to be so grateful that Kelly didn't rat her out for being a slut. Instead, Kayla says, fuck you. She goes to the principal, explains it all to the principal. The principal goes, well, I see where you're coming from, but maybe just,
don't say stuff like that.
Just go to the person next time directly instead of airing your grievances to a third party.
Yes.
So then the next time some guy calls her an anorexic bitch, she goes, fuck you forever. And she goes, that's just like the principal told me. Face-to-face confrontation.
The end. Kelly was so right.
I guess I feel stories about children aren't super interesting. Do you know what I mean? You really have to be piercing something true and universal about the dynamics or the friendships or the nostalgia. But I find her writing does not invite those feelings because it's like so self-indulgent.
Yeah, well, because the point of this story is to be like, I had social mix-ups, but only because I was coming from such a good place.
I do think if you were to ask her about it, she'd be like, no, didn't I look like such an asshole? I was such a little idiot. Like, but she doesn't.
She calls herself an asshole constantly in this book. She always calls herself an asshole and a bitch. But I'm like, right. But in every story, you're
kind of right. Like, she didn't do anything that bad. She was just like, I don't know.
She was coming from a place of concern.
Yeah. And I do think like, it's just not that interesting. It's like hearing about somebody else brag about their kid, except for they're bragging about themselves as a kid, kind of.
Yeah. I just don't care. So, she was awkward for a long time. And then she got so cute. And some people from her school got model scouted. And so then there was a model open call. And she goes, well, I have to go to that open call because I'm obviously model material.
Well, I think that this is quite telling. So she goes, I did not look like a model. I did not want to be a model. Up to this point, my biggest claims to fame were my impressions of Steve Urkel and the chicken lady from The Kids in the Hall. My intentions were pure. I wanted to be famous, but I couldn't play an instrument, so I couldn't be in a band, and I couldn't memorize lines, so I couldn't be an actress. I wanted to be in Paris. I wanted to be anywhere else. I was obviously something of the world. I was 5'6" and weighed 80 pounds. I do think it's interesting that she's like, I wanted to be famous.
Yeah.
I do feel comedy is the last refuge of people with no discernible talents who want to be interviewed.
It's so funny.
Because there's something where it's like nobody can really point to you and be like, you're not good at what you're doing. Music, you have to know about notes. There's something about comedy where there's truly no barrier to entry outside of just doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Music, you have to be putting out songs at some point. Comedy, you can just be like, I'm doing comedy right now.
Especially on Twitter.
Yeah.
This is a sentence.
My kid said something today. Did yours?
It really is the easiest craft to try to get attention from.
Not everyone succeeds, but it is, I feel like for someone to be, I want to be famous, I'll try modeling. Modeling didn't work, I'll try comedy. Like that feels like a pretty natural progression.
I guess modeling is also similarly low barrier to entry, except for that there's like such an obvious delineator. The difference is nobody can stop you from doing comedy. Nobody can stop you from downloading Twitter. Nobody can stop you from going to an open mic. Mm-hmm. Somebody has to take a photo of you to make you a model.
Yeah.
There's like no second person involved in this.
So she goes to this open modeling call. They don't call her name. And she goes, well, I'm going to make someone call my name. So she just starts going door to door at these agencies and being like, you called my name at the open call? And they were like, no, we didn't. They'd like look at her and go, no.
Yeah, they had said, if your name got called, meet us in half an hour across the road at this office and address. And so she just shows up. And of course, they have a list of who they've called.
And it's not her. But finally, she's persistent enough that one agency goes, yeah, okay, come to this little boot camp we're doing next weekend. So she goes to the boot camp. They teach the kids how to model. They tweeze her eyebrows.
When she gets into the car, she's like kind of embarrassed that they took off her glasses, they tweezed her eyebrows, they straightened her hair, they gave her makeup for the first time. And, there's her mom and her sister with her old eyebrows. She's talking about the betrayal she feels of no longer looking like them in order to look good. And her mom just looks at her and goes, well, I guess we should all get some tweezers.
Yeah.
And that's the entirety of it. She started up the Aerostar and we drove over the tracks back to the wholesome side of town where dads don't wear glitter and kept their Hanes-clad asses indoors. That's because where this modeling boot camp was, a bunch of gay guys were coming out of a rave and she couldn't believe what they'd be wearing in the middle of the day.
Yeah. I was saying just now we walked by a rave and there were people shirtless and Claire was talking about someone she had a conversation with and she goes, I can't believe everybody's freaks. But we were standing right next to 4 shirtless people at 11 a.m. on a Monday.
And that's not who I was talking about. I was just talking about people you have a casual conversation with at a bar who don't share your 100% conversational tactics.
I know.
If you're those guys, I don't think you're freaks. I think people who don't agree with me 100% on everything are freaks.
Exactly. It was so funny. It was right after Claire was telling me what she told you guys in the beginning of the episode, that she's really enjoying talking quiet.
I didn't say I'm enjoying it.
Well, you're finding power in it.
I see the appeal. I see the social appeal forced on people.
Yeah.
I get why a woman insecure in her womanhood would get off.
But she firmly rejected it, started talking loud again, and called 4 guys freaks immediately.
I'm too powerful. I need to be heard.
Okay, so Do people really have trouble with bodily functions in the way they do in comedy books? Or is this something people only write about in comedy books? Like the people who write books about it have experienced it and no one else has? Or like does everyone pee their pants all the time?
I don't think all their time, but I think when you're a very beautiful girl who thinks of herself as funny and has been found funny, you mine. And then what becomes very important is
having peed your pants.
Yeah.
Okay. I just feel like we read a lot of pee pants stories and I don't know a lot of pee pants people.
No, but I think you sit down everybody at a nursing home and say, ever in your adult life, did you accidentally like get diarrhea or puke after a night out or like...
Yeah. No, puking after a night out, I get.
Well, that's the next one.
I know. But the peeing of the pants is the one I actually don't get and it doesn't even really get explained.
Okay, so here's the story. When she was 14, she went across the street to a gas station to try to buy cigarettes to look cool. And while she was in line, she just peed her pants. Like she looked down and there was a puddle of piss at the gas station.
And then she stayed in line
to get her cigarettes.
And then she asked this lady, can I use your phone to call my mom to pick me up? I just peed my pants.
I guess like anybody, she was like, sure. And so her mom comes and gets her.
I actually think the lady said no, but Kelly just did it anyway.
Anyway.
And I don't think you're going to like argue with a 14-year-old full of piss.
You're not going to get close. It's a biohazard.
Yeah. So her mom comes and picks her up and then she explains why she wasn't at school by being like, well, I peed my pants, so I ran across the street so that no one would see me. And her mom goes, that's very smart.
The next day, she has a big day planned. She's going to a party with her best friend. She's going to say she's sleeping at her friend's house. Her friend's saying she's sleeping at her house. She's never really partied or drank before, so she like downs what she calls a tornado, which is like a Long Island iced tea, just a little bit of every alcohol she can find. Chases it with a beer and then has a ton of McDonald's. And would you believe she immediately pukes?
Yakking in the car on the way over.
The first person she pukes on is a man that she refers to like as a Chinese man on a bike. Again, we're in the Tina Fey era where the funniest thing somebody can be is a race.
A lot of this book is very race specific because those are the details that'll really make you laugh.
And so she pukes all over this Chinese guy. He's speaking Chinese and she goes, who wouldn't want to watch that? That's kind of funny, huh? He's speaking Chinese and getting puked on.
LOL.
And then she gets into the car and she pukes in her shirt. Drunkenly, she goes, oh, I'll just like toss the puke out of the window. Obviously, she doesn't make it. So now there's just like puke all over the car. The guy who's driving them, the boyfriend, he's going back to his house right then because it's his dad's birthday. And he keeps going, you puked my dad's car on his birthday. And I'm like, that's pretty bad.
That's really fucked up.
That's the kind of shit that makes you go, I fucking hate having kids.
Imagine it's your birthday and your son returns home with a car full of puke.
And you're like, whose puke is this? And it's not even a girl he's it's like just a girl.
Yeah.
So she goes to this party. I think at this point she's like recently found out she's quite hot. So she has like newfound power. She immediately falls asleep. When she wakes up, it's 3 a.m. Everyone's smoking cigarettes outside. She's all fucked up looking from being drunk. Someone had seen her get picked up from the gas station and they assumed and started the rumor that she had got caught stealing, which is very cool to people. Of course, much cooler than peeing in your pants for no reason. So like the coolest girl in school, the meanest girl in school, who's like a little emo goth, kind of comes up to her and is like, oh, you're cool. Like we should go to the mall sometime. And for some reason, Kelly is like, I stood up for myself and I said, no, I want to hang out with my parents and watch Jeopardy. So she calls her dad at 5 a.m. and has him pick her up and she leaves. And it was just a whole story where I'm like, well, I guess you won on all accounts and like I just like didn't know what the point was.
You successfully peed your pants and got away with it. You successfully puked in your best friend's boyfriend's car on his birthday.
Here's what kills me.
On his dad's birthday and got away with it. And then you like got the coolest girl in school to want to hang out with you, but you like were better than the high school social pressures and you got to like, you know what I mean? You win.
What was so mean about that girl saying, should we hang out sometime? She has this line where she talks about while she's asleep, her boyfriend helps the other guy clean out the dad's car.
Oh my God.
She goes, ugh, I feel so terrible that you guys had to clean that up. I didn't really feel terrible. I know that just makes me terrible. But I was more embarrassed about the McDonald's vomit than anything. And frankly, I was just glad someone else dealt with cleaning it up. Plus, I wasn't mature enough yet to realize I could just laugh and tell Alex, haha, you cleaned up the barf because you love me or you want to have sex with me. And we didn't have sex, you fucking sucker. Like I can now with my husband. I was a 14-year-old little liar who still thought I had to appease people's sensibilities to keep them loving me. I wasn't old enough to realize that I could be my terrible self and have people love me for that.
I mean, you were your terrible self. You did throw up in the car and he cleaned it up. Like, that sucks.
Nobody's ever loved you because you puked all over a car and they cleaned it. Like, I guess I don't understand why she couldn't just be like, oh, thanks for doing that.
Like, you should feel bad. That is gross. Like, I'm sorry. It's nice that he did that. And I don't think everyone's responsible for their own barf. I think sometimes it's nice to help people when they're down and out. But I do think
to like have somebody go clean up your barf
and then be like, I didn't even feel bad that they cleaned up my barf.
and then say, ha ha, you stupid loser. You just did that because you love me. People don't love you because you're terrible. They love you because you're very, very pretty. And so you get away with being terrible. And I will say, as a divorced person, I wonder how long you got it. Like, I don't know.
It seems like you didn't get away with it forever. It seems like to say I can just make fun of it like I do now with my husband, it seems like eventually his patience for that shit ran out.
It's just such a weird thing to say when like all you've done is be bad and all anyone's done is be nice. And you're like, ha ha, idiots. And then like, I guess a popular girl is nice to you and you're like, well, I fucking hate you. And then your dad picks you up. I don't know. It seems like everybody in your whole life has always had your back. So I guess I just don't understand what the one-upping is.
And then her parents don't really care that she was drunk at a party. And she goes, wow, my childhood just kind of fell away.
Yeah, she's really sad because her parents don't punish her for sneaking out to a party. And I'm just like, sure. Congrats on digging and finding the problem. So then she has a chapter about work experience where she could have graduated high school. She could have like done really well in chemistry and stuff, but she didn't want to because she's lazy.
It was so boring.
So instead, she does this work experience internship for credits, and she works at a video store, and she loves it because she just gets to watch videos all day and rewind stuff. There is a porn section, and one day a guy in a wheelchair comes in to look at the porn section, and when she goes in to check on him, he's jerking off. So she has a boss who's really against stealing, and so she's like, oh my God, this guy's like stealing the porn because you're supposed to pay to be able to jerk off at home, and he's just jerking off right here for free. So she calls her boss, gets this guy in trouble, and then feels so guilty about ratting on this guy that she doesn't take the full-time job.
Yeah. And she also mentions a couple of the things that she felt were done inefficiently at the video store because she's very smart and everyone else is very dumb. And overall, it's just not interesting.
So I do think this is like one of those like funny kernels of a story, but there has to be something else weaved into it. Do you know what I mean? Like what she's really lacking is the 1-2 punch.
Yeah. And it ends up instead being no punches.
So next chapter is called Finding Leo, and it's about her crush on Leo DiCaprio and how she fell in love with him during the movie What's Eating Gilbert Grape. And she's like, I have to get to him before Titanic when he becomes a star. And I don't think she was wrong. He did become a star.
I guess I think she was underestimating how much of a star he was before Titanic. I don't think Titanic blew him up. I think he was in Titanic because he was
a star.
A star.
I think that's very fair.
So she and her friend, who don't have a lot going on, they've graduated high school. They're both working. Kelly for her dad, her friend at like a coffee shop or something.
Yeah, it seems that she has just like however many hours a week she wants to do whatever for her dad's office.
Yes, they fly out to LA. They have a friend that they met in a Hollywood chat room picking them up at the airport. There's a lot of stuff where she goes, you know, we really could have died on this trip.
The big punchline in this section keeps being like, I could have been raped.
And she calls a lot of people rapists. She'll go to hotel rooms with random people, but the second they start acting kind of weird, she's like, he was a rapist. And it's just like, I guess maybe. I guess it's so possible that these guys who met 17-year-old Canadians in a chat room and like went home with them. I don't know. It's possible that this could have gotten very dangerous. And one of their big mantras is weed always finds us. And so they're always just smoking weed and looking for Leonardo DiCaprio. They meet a lot of strange characters.
So she meets this guy, Johnny, in the Hollywood chat room, as Ashley said, and he picks them up from the airport and drops them off at their hostel. But first he takes them to his mom's house, and he lives in Compton, and they're like stoked. They're like, oh my God, you get to go to Compton. What a trip. I can't believe we smoked weed in Compton.
They're like, oh my God, Johnny's half black. And so we got to go to Compton with him, and it was crazy to be there. It was like a movie set.
I do have to say this. Her online name, her AIM name, or whatever she had, MSN, whatever, was Chicken Catcha Tori, Tori. I guess she called herself Tori online, but she goes, my other internet names include Notorious, which Tori spelling would totally steal from me in the future, and Rhetorical, Sartorial, way over Tori's head. First of all, Tori has written 8 memoirs.
You have never thought of a Tori pun that Tori spelling herself has not written a book about already.
You leave Tori out of it. You're not as fancy as you think you are. You're not better than her.
She's got a Tori pun for every room in that largest single family home in California.
Did you say you had read this book already?
Yeah. So this is the one chapter that I remembered from this whole book. We were talking about how she was famous. Like,
yeah.
I remember my mom loving Kelly Oxford. I think a lot more people than we remember now were very into Kelly Oxford as an online character. I think there are a lot of people who you're like, oh my God, that person got a book deal from like a 1,000 follower Instagram
But she
account.
was bona fide.
She was bona fide. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel, I think, was obsessed with her for a while.
I mean, even later in this book, she gets to go to Vegas for free because David Copperfield's such a big fan of her Twitter. And I was like, dang, we don't get shit for free.
I guess I would compare her almost to like Alex Earle in that there are people who become, you know, famous on the social media platform they're on. And then there are the crossovers who randomly are like the most famous one that's getting talked about on other platforms as well. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that someone's mom would know who Alex Earle is, but I do think more people than just the people always watching TikTok know who Alex Earle is.
Yeah.
She was a breakout star of Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mom was obsessed with her. I remember reading this book and being like, okay, she's actually so annoying. Long form was not the right call. Keep them to 140 characters.
I guess she is somebody who just, it worked out.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the subtext of this book of like, she's too good for every job. She's too lazy to do anything. She wants to be a writer. She thinks she's better than everybody. And I mean, the phrase in this chapter, weed finds us. Like she just have this idea like, it's fine. It'll work out for me. And it does.
And it does. And
which
so
isn't like the cutest thing to read about, especially when that person also then on top of that thinks they're smarter than everybody and everybody else is so stupid. And you're like, well, I guess if I was 80 pounds and the cleverest girl on Twitter.
And like the cutest girl in Edmonton.
Yeah.
This is the only chapter I even remember from the entire book. I just remember her like running around LA looking for Leonardo DiCaprio and smoking weed and not finding him. But she calls everybody a rapist the whole time.
She never finds Leo. And at some point her friend is like, you have to stop stalking him. Why can't we just have fun?
Yeah.
She's as close to a Jessa as we'll ever get.
Yeah.
I do think to know her, there was probably like this magical force field around her of like, what do you mean at 17 years old? She said, let's go to LA tomorrow. You got on a plane with $300 and just partied for 2 straight days. At one point, they're going to get pizza and they don't realize how far everything is in LA. So somebody just like doubles back and goes, I'm just going to drive you there. People just keep offering them rides. And as much as she's afraid of everybody being a rapist, nothing bad happens. People keep giving her weed and rides and tips and buying her room service. And it all works out.
It all works out. They sneak into the Viper room. They just get in at the front of the line. Everything is just fine.
I think just to be in her orbit, you're probably like, well, this is the most beautiful, funniest, charmingest, daringest. Like, I can imagine it's incredibly intoxicating to know her. And I can imagine men absolutely rip their legs off to meet her.
Yeah.
I think she is smart, but I think she's underestimating how much she gets away with, not because she's the most clever girl in the room, but because people will clean out the puke in someone else's dad's car just to keep dating her.
Yeah.
The only other thing I wanted to point out is that one of those times somebody offers her a ride, the guy comes back and her friend Amy is like, why wouldn't we take it? Sometimes I wished Amy was a little more like me. I couldn't explain everything to her, like why it bothered me that this guy probably considered us stupid losers. But at the same time, I think we were best friends because our reactions were usually so different. They were walking alone in LA at 17 years old at 3 a.m. trying to get pizza and somebody just offered them a ride. And she was like so angry that her friend let them take the ride.
We're going to look embarrassing like people who don't know what they're doing or where they're going.
I find this very, you know what I mean? Behind every carefree, let's hop on a plane and these guys are going to take us around town. I mean, at one point, the next day they meet these 2 guys at a bar and they go, let's drive to Vegas right now. Like for all of her, let's get in a car and go to Vegas with these strangers. There's the part of her in the background going, but make sure we look cool. And I think that that's very important.
It's so important. Another thing very notable to me throughout this book. So at one point they're on a bus going through Hollywood and a guy who is probably on drugs is in the back telling everyone he's Basquiat. And she engages with him and has a conversation being like, no, you're not. He's dead. And the guy is like, no, I just said that so that I could, you know, get away from it all. Whatever. The thing is, she feels very proud of herself for being the only person to engage in certain situations. There are a lot of things where she's like, I'm the only one who notices these things, as if no one else on the planet has existed outside of the 4 seconds that she's in the same room as them. Do you know what I mean?
She says at the very beginning of the book, she's like, I love it when people are weird and wear their weird proudly like me. And I'm like,
I guess to me, it feels very like for someone to be in a city for 5 seconds and be like, I love talking to the raving people on the bus. The other people who were on that bus are probably on a bus every single day and know you have to just keep to yourself. Like everyone is new to a city one time being like, I have a fun time. This is someone's everyday life. You're on a vacation there.
Deeply unique.
Right.
I believe David Foster Wallace is terminally unique.
Terminally unique.
And I do think that that was like the personality at the time that people loved. Like,
yeah. And not to get ahead of myself, but later when she talks about working at a nursing home and she's there for maybe a month on this rotation. And she feels she's the only one really caring about these people. And it's like, well, other people have made it their full-time job to care for these people. You're here for 5 minutes. You're not better than them. You're a vacationer in this world that is actually quite difficult and heartbreaking constantly.
She also in LA meets her first ever bathroom attendant.
Yeah.
The bathroom attendant is the first person I'm going to call her on her shit and go, you're really annoying. Stop telling, like, these stories are boring. Stop telling them to me. Your life isn't crazy. You're fucked up or anything. And Kelly starts calling her her magical Negro, which is, it is like a film phrase used to depict like the stereotype in a lot of like white films of when an older Black person comes in and
just a side character in the story that they need to complete their hero's
like
journey.
This like mystical wise, like the grandmother tree. Like, it's very actually a weird example of it that I was like, damn, what was that chess movie? The Queen's Gambit.
Oh, yeah.
Like her roommate kind of fills that trope and that stereotype. And it's like obviously a very flattening racist stereotype to have this idea that some Black woman's job is just to come in and help like the white protagonist see the truth and move on.
And so for her to in real life be running through this bar being like, I met one.
She's doing it clearly in a very like 2014 30 Rock tongue in cheek. It's not racist if you know. Obviously that term is like a term created to like call out racism, but it's still like uncomfortable and unfun. And
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, good job noticing your own biases.
Yeah.
But like, that's not actually
anything. It was one of those things she said it once and you're like, okay. And then the joke was that she kept saying it. And you're like, well, you won.
Yeah, congratulations. The next chapter is about, in her opinion, the worst thing she's ever done, which is her and her friend Amy, the same one she went to LA with, purchased a van. And
again, she goes to this woman's house and she's like, this Eastern European, oniony smelling ass kitchen. She goes, her sons are probably rapists because it was their van first. And I'm like, not everybody's, you can't actually just keep calling everybody a rapist.
Yeah.
That can't be your joke that every time you think somebody's like different than you or seems like working class, you can't just be like, they're all rapists.
So they buy this van, they drive it out to like an island off of Victoria Island. They're just, living, camping, smoking weed, spending all their money. They have almost no money left to their name and they realize they probably don't have enough gas money to get back. So they're going to have to go to the main Victoria Island and get jobs. When they're there, they bought this van for $900. A guy comes up to them at a gas station and offers them $1,000 for it. So they sell him back the van. Meanwhile, they'd also been toying with an idea for how to get home. Apparently, the Salvation Army had this program where they would just give runaway kids a plane ticket home. So they're like, what if we just did that? And they're like, no. But then they get $1,000 for this van. So now they have no van. And they're like, okay, let's just go to the Salvation Army and get home for free. But Kelly feels so guilty for not being a broke homeless teen that they just go spend the money on clothes so that then they can go get a free plane ticket home.
Because now they are broke.
Because now they are broke and they're homeless. They don't have a van.
And they were saying like, look, we are broke and homeless. And the girl goes, yeah, but our parents would buy us a ticket. And she goes, it would be so disempowering to ask our parents to buy us a ticket home.
Better to scam the Salvation Army. I guess my question is, how much is a plane ticket from Victoria to Alberta?
I mean, the point is it doesn't matter because however much it was, her parents would have done it.
Right, but they had $1,000 in their pocket.
Yeah.
I'm saying I think 2 tickets would have been less than $1,000.
Oh, 100%.
So.
No, I mean, they stole.
Yeah.
But I think that's her point. I mean, the whole point is that she's like, you want to hear something I did that's so fucked up?
I guess I don't think it's fucked up. I think it's stupid. I don't care about stealing from the Salvation Army. At the end of the day, I'm like, I don't know, man. It seems like it was fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like that's actually the worst thing you've ever done because you're calling everyone else that you actually know a stupid idiot.
That's why this book doesn't stand the test of time because it's in no way sincere and honest. And the joke here is like, I'm the only one being honest. And it's like deflection honesty of like, I'm going to tell you something gross instead of telling you something real.
Yeah. And so to me, I'm like, these blazers from Club Monaco you bought with that $1,000. I feel like in general, they didn't want those clothes. They didn't care about those clothes. They bought them so that they would have no money left. Mm-hmm. If the goal was to have no money, why not spend the money on a plane ticket?
Yeah.
That's what annoyed me so much. And the point of it was to be like, oh my God, we were such fucked up kids. We did something so evil. And it's like, no, you did something so
like
stupid.
It was contrived.
It was like very contrived.
It wasn't genuinely selfish. It was like weirdly contrived.
Yeah.
And that's how you know that there's something genuinely selfish in her heart that she's not telling us. Because
exactly.
This was like a real workaround to figure out a way to do something fucked up. You feel that they're writing the story in the moment.
Yes. They're saying this is a fucked up thing for us to do, so how do we do it?
They wanted to steal candy from a baby so they could say, how bad are we? We stole candy from a baby, but first they had to go find a baby and give him some candy.
Exactly.
Then they came back and stole the candy from the baby so that they could tell you at a party, like, I'm not like other girls. I'm fucked up.
Yes.
It wasn't like they were already looking at those clothes and said, we have a choice to make.
No, they weren't like, which should we buy, the clothes or the plane ticket? They were saying we have to buy some clothes. Let's just go see what we can spend money on so that we have no money left for a plane ticket.
How I Met Your Father, when the children ask, this is what I will have to tell them. This is another real story about what a cool fucking girl she is.
She's so cool. So she got such a bad haircut, which sucks, except for that she's so pretty. So it doesn't
Every guy
matter.
still wanted to date her. Her boss wanted to date her. And he goes, since I can't date you, can I introduce you to my friend?
His friend was James, who ends up becoming her husband.
He calls her a bitch right away. And she's like, he gets me. I am a bitch. And I was like, I love it.
This is how you know she named her kid Salinger.
Can I tell you? So her oldest child is named Salinger, which is one of the least favorite names I've ever. It is like she has a kid at 23, so I'll give her some grace. But I'm like, nothing has ever screamed, I want to be a writer. I want to be taken seriously. I'm different than you. And I only graduated high school.
We're both depressed and lonely, and it's love at first sight. Blah. Boo.
Okay, if that one gets you, this is what gets me. Can we get really, really, really drunk together tonight? I feel like we'd be good at that. I asked your father this over the phone at 9:30 a.m. By 9:30 p.m., we're sitting in a downtown pub getting really, really drunk.
I hate people. Can we go to a park and have sex?
So they go to a park and have sex outside, and they start getting hate crimed. People start screaming slurs at them and throwing rocks at them. And to her, this is really funny because she realizes because she's a short little haircut, they think she's gay.
Yeah.
They're like, isn't that funny that we got hate crimed? And I'm like, totally. I bet gay people think it's
funny.
so funny.
Yeah, she's like, I was laying in the field pantsless in my pea coat.
We were getting gay bashed for having straight sex. This is amazing. And then she looks at herself and goes, I guess this haircut isn't so bad.
She felt very beautiful with him.
Then she has a chapter about the time she was an assistant to a producer who had the #2 show.
After The Sopranos.
And again, it's a story about how like she went to live with her boyfriend at the time. She was working as a waitress. She got fired. So she goes up to live with him and is doing nothing. And he goes, my boss has a friend who's a producer. Do you want to be his assistant? So she moves to Vancouver, gets this job. Everybody keeps telling her, but you should be an actress. You're so cute. She doesn't want to be an actress. She wants to be a writer. And everyone goes, cool. Well, how can we help you support your writing? She goes, I don't have anything. She's so mad. She's so mad. People keep asking how they can help her. Every time someone says you should be an actress, she goes, that's stupid. I don't want to be an actress. I want to be a writer. And they go, okay, what have you written? And she goes, nothing. Idiots.
I liked the idea of acting. I liked the idea of a lot of things. Harvey told me you're a writer, she says. Have you written a screenplay or something? She's so annoyed that he keeps telling people she's a writer because now people keep asking for what she's written. And she's like, nothing.
She meets an actual writer and he goes, have you ever been to LA? And she goes, what a fucking loser. I hate that guy. What a prick. What an LA prick. She
makes fun of this LA writer.
That's the thing. That's one of those books where everyone who's so awful to her, I'm like, but what have they done wrong besides honestly be kind to you?
Well, the other thing is the LA thing that she's describing is so preposterous. First of all, in a writer, this is like notoriously not the way writers are. This is the way like producers are.
He shows up in a suit to set and she goes, what are you look like an idiot. Why are you wearing a suit here?
When is the fucking last time you saw a serialized television writer wearing a suit except to an award show?
I was gonna say maybe Ryan Murphy.
Yeah, but he's a producer.
Yeah, he's a big shot. He lives near Martha Stewart, we just learned.
Yeah.
And she's very jealous of his herb beds.
Ryan Murphy and Ralph Lauren and Martha Stewart, quite a block. Anyway, this writer that she's describing and making fun of and calling annoying and stupid is a preposterous character that I do not for one second believe exists. He keeps on saying, you've never been to the Palisades, it's divine. Who the fuck is she talking about here?
I get like kind of snickering with your friends, but I don't think that's so evil that you get to put it in a book.
Me too.
Because he is like, well, if you're ever out, like, do you know what I mean? It's one of those things where if I just said it with a different tone, it's like actually not bad at all. And it makes you wonder, well, what was the tone?
Yeah. And it's also one of those things where it's just like, I get that you didn't like this guy. He just hasn't done anything wrong.
Well, the reason he's talking about he goes, it's crazy. I left LA. It was raining there and it's not raining here. And normally it's the opposite. He's like, but it was really pretty. It's raining in the Palisades. It's great. Have you ever been? Like, oh, you should go. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know. He's just making small talk. He's trying to be respectful of the assistant.
I mean, after they part ways, he kisses her hand and says, you're a great writer, Kelly. You'll be great. I'll see you next time. Full of shit, all of them. Brian hasn't even read my thoughts on Britney Spears.
By the way, her thoughts on Britney Spears is Britney's an idiot.
Yeah. I hear Harvey say, hey, my show came in second last week. Some show called The Sopranos came in first. You guys ever hear of that? I wince. Lovable dumb fuck. Why did she write this? It seems like everyone was just giving her a chance.
It was a lot of stories about everyone being nice to Kelly and her like still being pissed off.
Yeah.
Because they're so stupid.
No, they were nice in a way that's like dumb. They're so dumb. So she has her first kid with James.
At 23.
And
I would have loved to hear the story of that. Like, was it on? Because she says when she was little, she'd always wanted kids. It's so funny. I actually really do want to hear about this woman's life and like how things kind of happened for her. And she gives you none of the, I am like, did you choose to have a child? Was it by accident? Like, what was the feelings? What was that like being 23 and having a kid and not really having a job?
It is interesting that this random woman who had dreams of a great famous life became really famous for a couple of years and has, 2 books out.
Well, the other thing is like, I'm interested in this era of her life. So she graduates high school, doesn't go to college. She's kind of just bumming it around, living off of her middle class privilege and the fact that she's pretty, finds a boyfriend. It seems like she's never had a job this whole time. Or like she's kind of like gets this.
She has jobs as a bit.
Yeah. And then she kind of gets pregnant. So she seems like she just kind of leans into that. And the premise of this chapter is after she has the baby, she becomes terrified of like, what if her husband dies and she can't do anything because she's been out of the workforce. Then she gets a job or whatever. But like, I am kind of like, what was going, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing from the last chapter is that at that point she had started blogging. She had like a GeoCities page where she would write humorous essays, it seems, that luckily grew into this. So she has had these goals and these dreams since she was a kid. It's interesting to see how it all came together.
Yeah, it's funny. They're all happening in the background. It's all coming together in the background of these like snarky little notice things about how stupid everybody else is.
Yeah. So she realizes she needs a backup plan.
She goes to like a local technical school to see what she could do. She then lists all the jobs that are beneath her. Dental assistant, medical lab, just admin work.
So then she sees something called rehabilitation assistance. And she goes, okay, this could be interesting. So she takes the courses. She does really well in them.
She's top of her class.
Yeah, she's actually so smart when she applies herself. And then she has to do 2 rotations. And because she's top of her class, she gets to pick where she wants to do her work study programs or whatever. And she chooses a brain injury clinic and a nursing home. And so there, she's the most compassionate one. She like actually cares about these people. Nobody else does. And then she's like, I can't do this. This is too hard. I'm like the only one who's compassionate enough for this. And it's too difficult to care this much about people who are, sick and dying.
Yeah, she keeps saying, I can't help them. I can't help them. So I'll just quit. And I am like, well, you were only there for like 2 weeks. She both cares more than anybody else there, but also leaves because she cares too much and realizes there's no chance in helping anyone. And I'm like, do you think no one's ever been helped?
She talks pretty incessantly about how no one else who actually works there is doing a good job taking care of these people. No one cares enough about them. No one listens to them. So because she cares so much, she actually doesn't help them at all.
She says, I wasn't going to be able to help him. I'd never be able to help any of these fucking people. I don't know why that's true. I think if you had stayed, you maybe could have.
Yeah.
Like, what is help in this context? I guess like a solution that stays forever where you're the hero.
This is what I meant earlier, where she has no realization that anyone else lives a life every day. It's only where she blips in and out. I don't think anyone should be mean to old people at a nursing home, but if someone isn't like delivering pudding with the utmost care, it might be because they do that every single day. And she's sitting there being like, they were so not the most caring about the way they delivered this thing. And it's like, yeah, because they're there every day and you're here once.
Yeah.
Like you just don't live it.
A week later, I graduated at the top of my class. I listened to Dean and decided not to take the part-time job at the center where he and Peter lived. After all, my husband wasn't dead. I didn't need a backup plan quite yet. I stayed at home and had more kids with the husband who didn't die. I made James get better insurance. I pushed all 3 of my little kids around the zoo in strollers. I don't worry about being a single waitress, but I still worry about not doing enough for people. And when I drive past palliative care centers, I pretend I don't know what's going on inside.
Great. Good
It's
job.
so funny to be like, I'm worried I'm not doing anything for anyone anyway. There's a problem out there and I just ignore.
She has this little essay about one time when a nurse had her do an enema when she was on morphine. She goes, don't they usually do the enema for you?
The problem with this essay is I didn't know the answer.
I don't know the answer
because
either.
it sounded like it was prepared in such a way that you would be able to self-administer. So it made me think that there is both.
Mm-hmm. I think it depends on the situation.
Like in the way that like sometimes you pee in a cup, but if you had a catheter, they'd handle it.
Right. I think it's kind of one of those things where I bet you if you're a nurse, you're like, I'd rather do as few enemas as possible. So anyone who can give it to themselves will. I don't think she was fucking with you. But if she was, I don't know. I guess call in. if you're the nurse.
Oh my God. So she has a whole chapter about how her kids are animals, and one like wants apple juice and one's worried that the brother is colorblind. And so she zooms through a school district. She gets a ticket. The kid shits all over himself. They're covered in shit. She's going back home. She sees that the cops let somebody else who's zooming off without a ticket. She goes, what the fuck?
She pulls back over and she yells at the cop and she goes, how come that lady didn't get a ticket and I did get a ticket? And the cop goes, well, she was dealing with screaming kids. And Kelly goes, I was dealing with screaming kids. My kid is covered in shit and I'm covered in shit. Everyone here is covered in shit. And the cop tears up the ticket and goes, no one gets a ticket when they're covered in shit.
So now we have a chapter called Vegas, which is one of the longer essays. And I think gets closer to what these needed to be, which is like multiple ideas braided together.
Mm-hmm.
However, the big ideas are, one, she's decided at 33 years old, she's an old, ugly hag. And even though she is technically skinny and everybody keeps telling her she's hot, she wants to get in shape, even though she's never worked out before. I feel like this is such an interesting culture shift. It really used to be the thing to be a hot girl who never worked out.
It was so important.
I remember Sofia Vergara saying that. I feel like there was such a thing of being like, oh, who, me? I've never worked out. Oh my God, I would never work out. Oh, I'm so jealous that you enjoyed it. I just can't.
No, it was like bacon, Carl's Jr. commercials. Like, I'm going to eat a fat cheeseburger and then talk about how, like, I just like cheeseburgers. I'm not going to do physical work.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'll do bicep curls if I'm curling a burger to my mouth.
Yeah, I'll sit up to get bacon.
Yeah, I'll run over to that counter of chili cheese fries.
Yeah, I'll pull up. I'll pull up at the all-you-can-eat buffet.
Boom. Jennifer Lawrence, we've got your 2012 personality. Come get it from us.
So she said she's going to do Tracy Anderson online workouts because her friend is doing Tracy Anderson online workouts. And she's like, wait, you said you would never work out. And she goes, well, you said you would never work out. Now they're both doing Tracy Anderson online workout.
And the funny thing about this is, like, she does have to toe the line of hating her body, but being honest. And so she explains the problem with her body is, as I've already said, she is skinny if you look at her, but it's not muscly. And two, sure, when she's standing, she looks fine. But if she bends over, she's had children, so her skin's a bit loose. When she bends over.
She calls it soggy apple skin. But
when she stands up, it's fine.
No, she has a flat stomach. So no one get it fucking twisted, okay? Don't sit here accusing her of not having a flat stomach. It's just, should she bend over?
Meanwhile, guess who loves her? David Copperfield. So she DMs him and goes, oh my God, thank you. I'd love to have some magic in my life. So he arranges for her and her friends to come out to Vegas for free to see the David Copperfield show. So now they have to go to Vegas with their flabby little bodies. And she's like, my friend's
skinny. Hot. But not toned.
Yeah. She goes, my friend is gorgeous like a goddess. And my friend keeps saying we look identical, but... And then there's like nothing left. Just bad.
So they go to the pool the first day. She won't take off her dress and just be in her bathing suit because she feels too ugly.
Again, I mean, another moment of me being like, what is happening here is they're trying to get into the pool. And I guess she can't figure out how to use her key. And the towel boys aren't really helping her. And then she finally figures it out and gets in and asks for all of the towels. And when her friend goes, why do we need all the towels? She goes, it's a power move to let them know I'm in charge. And I'm like, the towel boys at the pool, they know. This is the definition of punching down. You needed to establish your superiority over the towel boys. You won.
Congratulations. She's like incensed that the waitress has a belly button ring.
She says, wouldn't you be so embarrassed if your mom worked at a pool as a waitress? Because she has to wear a bathing suit.
Yeah, that's nice of you, Kelly. So she won't take her dress off at the pool. And then finally it's time to change and go to David Copperfield. They go meet him. She has to pee really bad and she gets brought on stage. And that's, an experience, I guess. They're sitting with David Copperfield's girlfriend and he does this one trick where it looks like he gets really small. Like you can see his head and his body's in a box or something and the box gets small. And she's like, oh my God, I can't believe she had sex with him after this. I'm like, I don't know, man. You're sitting here oohing and eyeing over David Copperfield. He brought you to Vegas. He gave you free hotel rooms. He gave you a VIP experience at his show. And you're sitting there being like, I can't believe his girlfriend fucks him after these stupid tricks.
Then David Copperfield takes her to his museum, which is one of the crazier things I've ever heard. It's like a museum of his own life where he has perfect replicas of like his parents' store in the town he grew up in and all these weird Houdini artifacts. And she yells at her husband for touching things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not a real museum. Anyway, then they decide that David Copperfield probably bugged their suites. The way that like a lot of her jokes are just accusing people who've been nothing but nice to her of doing bad things.
She also gets catcalled by these two black guys and she just starts calling them like various rappers' names. It's such like 2013 racism. Okay, so this is the button on the story. So they go to a strip club and then the stripper tells her that her body is like so good. And she goes, yeah, I'm a stripper. I've touched a lot of women's bodies and yours is like amazing. And she's like, wow, okay.
So confirmed, just like we all thought the whole time, Kelly Oxford is
Good
hot.
body.
Then she gets on a plane, Common's there. The other big joke is like she wants to date Drake. And she's like, maybe Common can help me meet Drake. And it turns out they're in a feud. And she's like, oh my God.
Oh, also when she was on stage at the David Copperfield show, she could see herself on the TV like screen, the big screen. I look small and my arms look defined, but I don't look happy. Okay. It's because she had to pee.
It turned out she was hot the whole time. Maybe I'll get David to bring his psychic monkeys to my funeral. Maybe I'm pulling up my G-string. Maybe I'm not growing old. Maybe I'm growing up.
Oh, she also freaks out about AIDS again at the strip club.
Yeah, the strippers are really bored of her, I have to say.
I mean, they were not entertained, and I'm glad.
It's good to have a 50-page story about getting a free trip to Vegas, making fun of your host, and then finding out from strippers that you're the hot one.
Yay. Yay.
All while mixing up all the black people.
Hooray. We win.
Thanks, Twitter.
Go Whites.
Bring back the gatekeepers.
We have to call off the internet. It's too much.
So finally, we're at the crown jewel, Frogger, about going to the hell that is Disneyland.
Okay. This chapter was so... I love that she finished with this one. It was the most confusing chapter I've ever read in my life because she simultaneously wants to create and preserve the magic. Like she wants to create the magic of Disneyland for her children, preserve the magic of Disneyland for herself. And also she thinks Disneyland is so stupid and everyone there who thinks Disneyland is magic is a fucking idiot who should be shot dead in the street.
Can I say, I think this would have worked better as a stand-up routine, actually, because I think the problem with reading it in print is there is like an integrity to the written word where you're expecting a story, you're expecting a narrative. I think if she was just on stage doing like one-liners, it'd be okay to have these disparate little like noticings that are funny. And you can be like, I love it. And then like kind of tongue-in-cheekily. But something about seeing it written down, you're just like, I don't know, man. Who cares? Like,
yeah. So she talks about how she went to Disneyland when she was 12, which she feels is too old to like love Disneyland. You should be embarrassed by then. But she
explain that to the Kardashians.
Also, she did kind of love it. She was like, listen, I was like on the precipice of getting my period, but I still thought Disneyland was like very magical. And now she's there with her husband and her 3 children. Her husband thinks Disneyland is a shit show. He wants to go home. He hates it here. And she goes, I'm going to make him love it. These kids are going to have a magical time. We also are acknowledging how every person also in line is a dumbass.
Yeah. Everyone's causing the traffic but me.
Yeah. All these people want to go to Disneyland for a stupid reason. I want to come to Disneyland to have a magical time.
She also, I love it. She's talking about how her daughter, Sal, wants to just eat as much as possible. She goes, at 9 years old, she's 5'4" and thin with a size 7 foot. She's a human garbage disposal unit. Fine.
Garbage face. She wants to be Tori Spelling and she can't.
The very next page, she goes, looking around, it seems the most popular ride at Disneyland today is the obese 10-year-olds riding in strollers. At times, the crunch sound of kids pushing candy and dry cereal out of Tupperware containers and into their mouth is louder than the Disney theme music coming out of the hidden speakers. Adults leaning on benches throw back cups of cola as big as toilet bowls. Not like her kid, though. Her kid's very thin. So when her kid eats tons of shitty food, it's like fine because she's skinny. But when your fat kid eats food, you're disgusting.
Yeah, when her kid eats 2 corn dogs and then throws up on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. It's
and
like,
then has a churro.
And then eats a churro. It's like cute. It's actually like quite cute that he's like that because he's always yelling and eating corn dogs.
I really think she started the trend of things your kid definitely didn't say. One of the funny things about this book is that she's constantly talking about how she's not a liar. She's always like, well, I'm a terrible liar. I don't lie. I would never lie. I can't. I got in trouble because I couldn't lie. And then she says that Leo story when she tells it to her friends. She ends it with saying, I went to this place where he was supposed to hang out and saw Tobey Maguire. She's like, that's not even true. I just thought it was a better end to the story. And I'm like, okay, so you are a liar. And then I'm like, I'm sorry. All these things.
And this book is called I'm a Big Liar.
All these things you claim your kids say, lie.
Yeah, of course. She like really cannot believe that these other parents are standing in line waiting to take pictures with Disney characters. She calls them like pretty inappropriate things.
Yeah, she's like, can you imagine how embarrassing it is to be dressed as a princess in front of an actual princess? And then she thinks her 2-year-old's the coolest because she wants to meet the Beast instead of Belle.
Yeah, she doesn't want her picture taken with Belle. She wants to be introduced to the Beast. And Belle was like, oh, he's having lunch. And she goes, okay, so I guess Belle and the Beast don't eat lunch together.
And she goes, the castle's not even real. And they're like, ugh, our perfect snarky 2-year-old.
I believe you. I believe you, Kelly.
They're so happy because they're like, we have the snarkiest 2-year-old, and they were bound in love for their ironic little children.
The crowd throughout Disneyland is thick and 85% gross. Okay. I'm glad you're part of the 15% that's not gross.
Her whole thing is making sure her kids stay hydrated all day. So she's like counting out how much they're drinking. And her oldest daughter goes, Mom, you are weird, but I know there's a method to your madness.
Your kid did not say, I know there's a method to your madness, weirdo mom.
Then she came up to you and said, you're different than all the other moms. And that may be weird to some people. To me, I see that it's special because we get to have the most wholesome, cool childhood, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Thanks, Mom.
I'm glad my name is Salinger.
It lets people know that I'm better than them.
Guess what, kid? Your mom moved you to LA. You're not better than fucking nobody there. Everyone's got a weird writerly name. Her son at Disneyland grabs her hand as we walk away from the princesses. Man, he turns to me, shielding the sunlight from his eyes. It costs a lot of money to find out everyone is lying. What a precocious 7-year-old.
I thought it'd be fun to do this book. I guess I did think there might be more of the story of her life in here, and I was genuinely curious. The takeaway is always for me, irony doesn't stand the test of time. You're better off being less funny but more sincere. Comedy is so topical and it gets very dated very quickly.
I want to talk about what you texted me where you said the last text I ever received.
Oh, R.I.P. If only I had texted it a few minutes later, maybe I could have saved you.
I actually don't think you could have. I just wouldn't have seen it. I mean, I would have seen it on my laptop later, but you can't get me out of the communication game. I'm available. You were talking about how David Sedaris did such a great disservice to the writing community.
Well, I actually meant to reread a couple David Sedaris essays before we sat down to record, but
let's do that for the Patreon.
We'll do that because I am like, David Sedaris is one of those writers that a lot of people have said, well, I could write like David Sedaris, and actually you can. I think Tina Fey is another example of somebody that a lot of people go, well, I could do what she does. And it is like, they get away with a lot because they're top of the pack.
Well, there are a lot of comedians where like the greatness of comedy is when it's simple and relatable, but to create this like prolific body of work that is digestible and relatable and funny and fun and interesting and has a point, like that actually takes such enormous skill. The way that like a lot of male comedians we know for years were trying to do Nate Bargatze.
Yeah.
But you're like, well, Nate Bargatze isn't stupid.
Yeah.
He's a great joke writer.
And it's not impossible. I mean, like Gabrielle Union, I think, actually did a good job of having stories that were real. But what it is you have to anchor them in sincerity.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you are not one of the greats or working towards that in terms of comedy writing, you can have funny, like I remember she had a really funny chapter about having a UTI and like being on a hookup with a guy and going to CVS and being like putting cranberries up her cooch or something. You know what I mean? And being like, who among us has not called a friend and been like, I need help?
Well, the problem is that these stories are not anchored in like, can you believe how stupid I was? Can you believe how little information there is for like women out? Like these stories aren't anchored in anything other than everyone else is stupider than me.
Mm-hmm.
And anything I've done that is similar to everyone else is when I was trying to like see how the dummies live.
It is so interesting, the timeliness of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess Ashley did read it when it was supposed to be read.
And I didn't like it then.
She's an interesting prototype of what we would these days call a pick-me.
Yeah. I guess for the Patreon, we'll read some David Sedaris, and then I'm going to be reading some of her current Substack because I can't wait to see the way her writing is evolved.
I also want to look at like her top ever tweets. I really want to get back in that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Try to find some clues.
I am willing to bet you that there are
Did
quite
she,
the
like-
BuzzFeed listicles of best Kelly Oxford tweets.
God, oh my God. I have like a surge of jolt of nervousness just went through me. That is like, Claire, check your bank account. You have no money. You're living in a windowless third room in Williamsburg.
You're about to get a mustache
You have a
tattooed on
boyfriend
your
you
finger.
hate. Am I 23?
How many martinis would you have with her?
Oh my God. I'm sure now she's grown up. Like, I would love to see what she's doing now. In the way that Chelsea Handler, I think a lot of comedians have aged up and gotten with the times. And so I'd be interested to see. I would have 2 to 3 with her. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm sure her offline persona, we could talk a lot of shit. I think we could figure out how to fill a bar's space.
I think I would be interested to like be at a part. Like I don't want to sit down to a Wormtini one-on-one, but I think I'd be interested in like being in the same room and like having a conversation and moving about that same room with her.
I disagree. I think you would have a lot of fun talking with her. I think she has exactly our disease, which is talk shit disease to anybody. You don't think you would sit down with her and immediately figure out who you both hate and be like, wow, that woman is insightful.
I guess I don't want to spoil what I've already researched on her Instagram.
Oh my God.
And so
I can't wait for the Patreon.
How fertile would you say the soil is?
1.
Yeah.
Okay. Love you guys.